before a million times has walked away receiving impartation, receiving breakthrough, receiving healing. And y'all read the comments. Y'all need to go post some testimonies in the comments of our YouTubes, in the comments of our Facebook streams, because y'all don't believe me, right? Tribe, you're going to need to go tell these people the truth because, it's just me saying it, but y'all know the truth. Y'all have experienced that breakthrough. We've had financial breakthroughs. We've had people say, I need this job to come through so I can do the work of God. We get on a phone call in the mouths of two or three. We come, we pray, we proclaim. And the very next day we get a phone call saying, hey, I got the job. And it's even better than I thought it was going to be. We had actually a testimony. I'm going to share a quick testimony. Last week, my husband took Mentorship Meetup to give prophetic activation from our last series. And he got on that phone call and one woman was saying, yeah, I need this job. I need this job. And so he prays with her. She gets the job. She says to him, she says, Prophet Michael, you need to understand something about this job that you just prayed for and opened the door for. I was working 2 jobs to cover all these basic needs that I need. This new job is going to provide me more finances than both those jobs combined. This is the miracles we're seeing here. We've had people reconcile in their relationships. We've had people get physical healings in their bodies. We're having people connect, build, and launch churches and businesses. Guys, this is what we do here in Tribe. So if you do not want to be accelerated in your destiny, if you do not want to go through the process to step into your prophetic call and understand the prophetic process that God has had you on from the moment you were born, then please, by all means, exit this video because we're here to accelerate you. We're here to open up those doors for you to step into your destiny. So if that is something you're interested in, stick around, or better yet, go to www.myprophetictribe.com. That's right, myprophetictribe.com, and go and book yourself a free prophetic consultation where we can sit one-on-one to discuss your destiny, where God is leading you, and how we can help facilitate you in that destiny, how we can provide you the resources you need to really walk in the fullness of that destiny. So I think I've given you guys enough time to jump on in here to get comfortable. Have y'all shared? Give me those thumbs up. Give me an emoji in the chat box. If you shared this live stream, if you commented in the live stream, let me know. Put in the comment section an emoji that expresses how you're feeling today, how you've been feeling this week. Give me an emoji. Drop it in the chat box. I want to make sure that my tribe is here. I see some new ones have dropped in here. We already said hello to Maya Elliott. She's one of our newest tribe members. Please welcome her in tribe. We're so honored to have you. She shared a little bit about her process, how it's been a bit of a lonely journey. And a lot of people seem to think that it's a very lonely journey. They got to figure it out on their own. But she's excited to be part of this tribe and realize she doesn't have to do this alone. So welcome, Maya. It is an absolute pleasure to have you in here.
Question for you.
Yes.
I have a question for you, and I know I'm sorry for interrupting your Zoom.
Of course.
But what you said something about you guys get to know what our destinies are.
Oh, you know what, Maya? I want you to do me a favor because we're going to go into our breakout rooms and I'm going to interact with you. All right. We are having some technical glitches with Zoom, so I'm so sorry about that. So I tell you what, Maya, write down your question for me. Write it down. Every question that you guys have here is very important to me.
Got you.
And I want to answer you all properly. I don't want to rush you. I don't want to cut you off if I have to. So write down your questions. If anybody has any questions throughout the duration of this meeting, write it down. You know me. There's no such thing as a silly question if you don't know the answer to it. So write it down and I will answer it for you guys all at the end of today's lecture. Or better yet, drop it in the comment section. Freedom of speech, y'all. Drop it in the comment section. We are recording. We are going to go live, and I want to be here to answer your guys' questions. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to get started with today's mentorship meetup, and we're going to talk about ashes and authority. Part 1. We're going to unleash the wildfire in your soul today. That's what we're going to do. We're going to unleash the wildfire in your soul because there is a fire shut up in your bones. There is a fire that is just raging to be released within you. And you know it's there. And honestly, I'm going to be really straight with you today. You've learned to ignore it. You've learned to ignore that fire, to temper it down, to temper it, to cool it off. because that fire got you into trouble. That fire made you open your mouth and say things you believed you shouldn't have. It made you do things that offended people, that made people upset with you. That fire pushed you beyond what God intended sometimes, or at least you thought so. But I want to help you understand today that fire shut up in your bones is a fire that needs to be released. It is a wild fire that is going to lay waste to the territory of the enemy and help you claim the inheritance that God has for you. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking extensively about inheritance, your legacy that you're going to leave behind, and what God has already built up from you from previous generations, and how you're going to lay that down for the generations to come. So if you missed that series, y'all go back to our YouTube channel, go back to our Facebook page, catch up on those mentorship meetups, because y'all, that was stuff. The downloads God gave were incredible, and I am not going to be reteaching that today. No, ma'am. I'm going to be talking about what God needs to do today, and that is to unleash the wildfire in your soul. Now, before we talk about fire, I want us to talk about ash, because the title of this series is Ashes and Authority, right? Now, everybody knows you can't get ash without fire, but why do we need ash in the first place? What is the purpose of ash in our lives? Well, let's talk about the very basics and benefits of ash. Well, first and foremost, ash can enrich soil. It is a natural fertilizer in soil. When you have the right kind of ash mixed in with the soil, it creates a fertilizer that allows any plant planted in that soil to actually grow very strongly. It's also a natural purifier. It is a purifier for soil. So I don't know if you know this, but soil can have certain levels of acidity and minerals that, depending on the plant that you're planting, depending on the rose bush or the flower or whatever tree, if there's too much acidity, it can negatively impact the future growth or stunt the future growth of that particular bit of nature. And so when we put ash into the soil, it can actually neutralize some of that acidity in the soil. So it allows the purification and enrichment of that soil to come in and provide life. The second thing that, well, ash actually does, and you probably did not know this, is it provides pest and disease repellent. You heard me right. Ash can actually be a pest and disease repellent for certain things. It provides a shelter, provides a cover, and also, I mean, just think about it. Ash ain't very tasty. It ain't very tasty. You don't digest it very well. You know, it's already burnt up. It's already dead. So that enriching ash will provide a barrier that protects the soil from being contaminated, but also repel any insects or other pests that want to come and eat and destroy that beautiful rose bush or fruit tree that we're in the process of nurturing. Third, it is also, I briefly touched on this, a water purification, and it can also be used, of course, in the household. Charcoal and ash can be used to purify, remove toxins from water. It allows the bare minerals, the pure, enriching minerals and benefits of that water to be infused into our bodies and provide the health that we need. This also helps us with cleaning. It also helps us with skin and hair. It does so much. And then finally, it also is a wildfire recovery tool. You see, fire and ash triggers seed growth and adds the nutrients, of course, into the soil that those seeds need to grow. Sometimes what happens when we plant a seed in soil, if the soil has been dry for a very long time, which is most amount of time why wildfires end up being so devastating, is because it's been very dry. The soil, the plants, everything is incredibly dry. And so what happens is every seed has a very thin shell on the outside, right? This is the germification process. If you went to school, a class, or you even grow stuff, you kind of understand this process. There's a protective shell around the seed. And as that thing begins to grow and germinate, eventually that little sprout pushes through the shell when it's ready to begin growing its roots and eventually popping up out of the soil to begin receiving sunlight and growing in that way, right? But what happens is, if that shell is too dry, that little sprout cannot break through the shell that is covering it. And so, what fire does, fire comes and it actually makes that outside shell very brittle. It breaks it off of those seeds, which allows them to break through easier and begin producing, well, the roots that it needs to grow. That's why after such devastating wildfires, you actually see a lot of regrowth start coming up very quickly, because now those seeds that were laying dormant under the soil, sometimes seeds that have been dormant for hundreds of years, begin to start sprouting because that hard shell that has kept them contained for so many years has been removed from them. And if you want to see the benefits of ash in your life, if you want to see enrichment in your day-to-day walk with God, in your day-to-day life with your family, if you want to see the devil repelled and under your foot everywhere you want to go, if you want to see the purification of your soul, of your life, of your relationships, if you want to see growth in your life, you need fire. You need a devastating wildfire that will come and will consume the dross, that will come and it will consume the very thing that has been restricting your growth to begin with. But the problem is, for a lot of us, ladies and gentlemen, that thing that is restricting us is a thing that we put on ourselves. It is a cap, it is a restriction that we have believed, and we have placed it on ourselves in the name of reasons. The reason I cannot. It is impossible. It is too hard. It is too expensive. It is too much. It is too far. It is too this. It is whatever is the reasoning. You have been unable to do what God has called you to do. It is the cap that you have placed on yourself since you were a child. People started telling you, you're too loud. People started telling you, you're too bold. You're too brash. You're too harsh. They started telling you you're too unafraid. They told you all these things until you started, you see, up until that point, it sucked. Let's be honest, that sucked. That rejection that you faced sucked. Well, there came a point, prophet, where you stopped hearing what they said and started repeating it. You stopped listening to what they said and you started speaking it forth. You started believing it. You made it your own and you started saying, I'm too loud. I'm too bold. Obviously, I'm too harsh on God's people. So I'm going to step back. I'm going to be quiet. And you shut that fire up in your bones and you locked it in there and you said, be quiet, fire. Be quiet, fire. Not so much fire. I'm going to throw some more water on it. I'm going to throw some more water on it until all we have is not even useful ash. We have wet, mushy, charcoal dirt. That is no use. See, but what you don't know about a fire is the most dangerous part is inside those coals. So you can throw water on that fire. You can throw dirt on that fire. But if you do not thoroughly soak it down to its core, you still have the danger of a fire starting. That's how a wildfire starts. See, wildfires start in a number of ways. One, it can be started deliberately. I think that's pretty obvious. Somebody goes and actually starts a fire somewhere where, there's a lot of dry bush. And especially, like I said, you've had a drought. Wildfires are more likely to start naturally when there is a lot of dryness. If they're starting in an area where it's not been so super dry, 9 times out of 10, we're looking at something that is manufactured by somebody. And we'll talk about that in our next parts of this series. The wildfires start because somebody maybe didn't thoroughly kill the embers hiding underneath the ash. See, ash is a protective layer, remember? It is a pest and disease repellent. It is a protective layer. And if that protective layer is covering over that spark, all it takes is one breeze to remove that layer, and that spark gets free. and that spark will catch light. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today to unleash the wildfire in your soul. I'm here to release that spark that has been laying dormant in your bones and to give you permission to start some wildfires of your own. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we are entering into a very dark age. We are entering into an age where sin, where the works of the flesh are normal, are healthy, are encouraged. Our sense of identity is being encouraged to be stolen. It is being stolen, and people are saying it is a righteous work that identity is being stolen. They are saying this is a good, healthy work because we are stealing people's identities. This is the world that we are entering into. It is getting quite dark. And the soil and the work is being stamped down, and we need some wildfires that are going to go and pull down and remove the nutrients that are standing in our way. See, fire is neither good nor bad. I want to remove the stigma from you. Fire is not good or bad. It is a tool that is used to do a work. It is a tool that opens doors. It is a tool for the progression of civilization, a progression of our culture. It is a tool that provides sustenance, nutrients, protection, and all of the above for us in our day-to-day lives. And when we read about fire in the Bible, it is actually mostly referred to in a positive light. Fire in the Bible is usually, when referred to, meant for purification, refinement, and empowerment. Fire is never or rarely referred to just for the pure sake of destruction. When God talks about tearing down and bringing fire to destroy stuff, you see he's destroying the remnant of sin. He's removing contamination from the midst of his people. He says, I'm going to bring fire. I'm going to destroy Jerusalem. I'm going to destroy this city. I'm going to destroy this thing. We think that's so harsh and that's so terrifying. Like, God, why do you feel the need to do that? Well, because the ground was contaminated. It was contaminated, and fire needed to come to purify and lay waste to those that have been contaminated and provide a healthy, nutritious soil to build on. That's what fire is referred to. And I'm going to refer to three key and probably a few more elements throughout the scripture that talk on fire. But when it comes to purifying fire, it actually doesn't hurt. Did you know that? When God brings the purifying fire, when God's fire really comes into your life, yes, it burns. Yes, it destroys, but it never wounds. When we read in Exodus 3, verses 1 through 6, and the chapter even afterwards in Exodus 4, you can read both these chapters. They're really good. It says, Now Moses was tending to the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. So he looked and beheld the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. So when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he says, Here I am. Then he says, Do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And so Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Now, after this, of course, we had the back and forth conversation about God calling him to the Egyptians. He says, I hear my people. They're crying out. I've called you to be my deliverer. He gives them all the steps and stuff to go through. But it is in this moment we see here, first of all, that fire was already there. Did you catch that part in the scripture? It says, he led the flock to the back of the desert, came to Horeb, the mountain of God. The angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from amidst a bush, and he beheld the bush was burning with fire. The bush was already on fire, guys. When Moses got there, the bush was on fire. That fire is already inside of you. God has already provided that fire within you. All you have to do, well, is let it out. Now, I'm going to give you 3 very clear steps on how to start a fire. See, I am a fire queen in my family. If you ask them about these stories, I have started more fires in my family than anybody else. And not necessarily the good kind. And I've learned some things. Yes, I'm a felt fire. I take after my husband's name was very prophetic. Felt fire means field fire. For those of you who don't know, it's an Afrikaans word that means field fire, felt fire. That's where I get my name from. That's why God hooked me and my husband up because he knew we needed 2 fire starters that were going to set the world on fire. And so I have learned over the years how to start a good fire, not on purpose, mind you. I just learned. And then from there, my father started teaching me a few tips and tricks to manage fire correctly. But first and foremost, when you want to start fire, a lot of people say you need a spark. All it takes is a spark to start a wildfire. And this is true. But if that spark does not have a place to start, a pit to start in, well, that spark's going to fizzle out eventually because sparks, one singular spark, even a few little sparks, can actually go out very easily. They're very delicate depending on the size of the spark. So when you're starting a fire, you need a fire pit. This is the introduction between you and God and the call that He's placed on your life. See, before we can get authority, we need an introduction. We need to know what we are being given authority over. Authority is not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Authority is delegated and given according to task. Ladies and gentlemen, God is delegating to you authority for a specific task. Okay? I hope you're catching that. Because a lot of us think that I've got authority to trample on serpents and scorpions. Yes, of course we've got authority to trample on serpents and scorpions. But does that mean I'm going to go out into the middle of the desert, find a rattlesnake nest, which, by the way, those things are quite terrifying because there's hundreds to thousands of snakes in one little nest, and I'm going to start stepping on serpents? Just because I have the authority to do so? No, I'm more than likely going to get bit. And look, God is powerful. He can maybe mitigate the poison, but I would rather trample on the serpent and scorpion that God needs me to kill today in my house than go somewhere to test the theory. Let's not do that. But that's what we're doing in the body of Christ. In the body of Christ, we get a delegation of authority. We get a delegation of power. And we're like, awesome, I'm going to go take on the serpent. The world's serpent that covers the entire earth. But you can't even kill a simple little house snake. Let's start small. Let's start with the delegated authority of your heavenly Father or your spouse just gave you the stick to wallop that tiny little garden snake that's like this big right there in the corner of your house. Let's start there. Let's start with this small amount of delegated authority. And so when we're starting our fire in our fire pit, we must make sure the area is we lay the area out. We know what this area looks like. We don't want any unknown debris in this area. We want to make sure it's solid area that when we put our kindling, when we put our tinder and our firewood together, that it is not going to smother what God is about or we are about to do for God. Okay? So we got to clear the area out. We've got to go through the purification process. God's going to start having you ask for forgiveness. God's going to have you start looking at judgments. God's going to have you start recognizing all those little bad habits, those where you've been gossiping, where you've been slandering, where you've been disrespecting without meaning to. He's going to have you start looking at these little heart matters. Do you hear me? Heart matters. See, it's not about actually having a relationship with that person. It's not about you letting go and not engaging anymore, or just choosing to submit and be obedient to that pastor or to that leader or to that boss. It's the heart matter. Because how you've treated that one person, you've treated many others. Our hearts are not selective, ladies and gentlemen. If there's any unforgiveness there towards anybody for any reason, that unforgiveness is going to leak out into every other relationship that we have, no matter how much you believe you love that person. that unforgiveness is going to be there. It's going to contaminate. And it is what keeps your trauma and it is what keeps your wounds grounded in you. It is why you are never truly healed, no matter how much deliverance you go through, no matter how much counseling you get, no matter how much prayer you get. Those wounds, those trauma never leave you because you're working through and you have yet to actually forgive and let go of unforgiveness. Because you have not dealt with your bitterness, because you have not dealt with your judgment. We need to clear that pit out. We need to make it clean so that when we begin to bring that tinder, which by the way is very delicate, tinder is the pieces of paper, the very dry leaves, the super dry, thin pieces of grass. That's our tinder. It's very delicate and it is the starting of our fire. We must lay it down, the delicate parts of our heart. We must lay those small little things that we think are so insignificant, but they are the core of our fire. The core of our fire seems insignificant, but it is what makes that firewood and that wildfire so dangerous. It's what the spark will catch onto. If that spark does not have any of that tinder or kindling to catch onto, guys, we've got a dead fire. You've got a little flame for a minute and it looks pretty and it's hot for a second and then it's gone because it ate up everything and it didn't have enough time to grow its appetite. So from there, we got to put in our kindling. Now, kindling is the intermediate between our firewood and our tinder. See, like I said, tinder is that they're the stick, the leaves, the pieces of paper, the dry grass. Kindling are the thicker little sticks and branches that gradually get larger until we get to our firewood, which is going to burn hotter, burn longer, and have a greater effect on, making our s'mores or whatever we're doing at our campfire. This is the stuff where now we're going to start dealing with our insecurities. Now we're going to begin dealing with our physical limitations until eventually now we have our firewood. This is the direction that God has given us. We have the call, we have that tinder, we have the instruction that God gives us, that gives us the structure to hold everything together as stuff burns. And then finally, we have the direction God needs us to go through with the firewood that opens up that doors and allows that fire to continue burning. See, we start with a flame. Fire pits protect the flame until it becomes a fire. Spark, flame, fire. We got to start somewhere. That spark needs to catch the tinder, light the kindling until it becomes a fire that is hungry and needs to be continually fed. Guys, I want you to stop and recognize where God has been challenging your unforgiveness. And you're going to come to me and you're going to say, but Director Deborah, big sis, I've already forgiven everybody. I've already prayed and let go of all my judgments. I've already prayed and let go of all of my bitternesses. Have you heard the Lord's Prayer that we're supposed to pray daily? Forgive us our sins as we forgive our debtors. We're supposed to daily ask for forgiveness and give forgiveness. The scripture says, if the person asks for forgiveness, forgive them 77 times 7. Right? We're supposed to be forgiving consistently, forgiving and letting go consistently. Because guys, there's a lot of sin out there. There's a lot of words out there. There's a lot of people that are not quite perfect, just like you. And we are constantly saying and doing things that are really not that righteous. That's why we need the blood. And if you think that forgiving one person once off is the solution to your hurt, is the solution to your healing and your deliverance, you are wrong. Because our hearts need to be continually purified. We need fire on a daily basis. We need fire to cook our food. We need fire to heat up the hot water to clean ourselves. We need fire to wash the dishes and make sure we don't get sick. We need fire to provide for our families. It is a daily need, a daily necessity. And if you think forgiving once a week is going to keep that fire burning for the rest of the week, for the rest of the month, for the rest of your years, you've got a problem. We need daily fire, and that means daily forgiveness. That means feeding that fire with righteousness and purity. Because once we got our fire pit set up, then we can begin looking at the spark. The spark that finds its home in that tinder and grows. God showed Moses how to do miracles. That was the spark. See, God calls us, He gives us, like I said there, He calls us, He gives us instruction, He gives us direction. But then He gives us that spark that makes us all excited, like, ooh, okay, this is gonna be cool. That's where He gives Moses and shows him all the ability to start doing these miracles. Puts the hand in, it comes out lame, puts it back in, it comes out healed, throw the staff on the ground, it becomes a snake, turn the water into blood. All those cool miracles. That's the spark. That's what gets us excited, but it's not the fire. Remember, if that spark doesn't have the correct tinder and then kindling to latch onto, you're not going to get a fire. You're going to have a quick flame that is easy to be put out. But we want to start a wildfire. We want to start something that's big and wild and untamable, that is not put out so easily. And so you are going to get a spark from the Lord. You're going to get something of a step of direction. You're going to get a faith. You're going to get an impartation of something that is going to push you in the direction that you need to go. That's going to allow you to feed that fire until it does become the wildfire that we need it to be. We're going to transition from flame to fire. You're going to get an impartation from God. Now, impartation comes in a couple of ways. Just as starting a fire is. There are three main ways you can start that spark or start that fire. One, you can use matches, which are one-time use, and you're going to need a match every single time you go to start a fire. In which case, this is what a lot of us are doing. We're going from church to church, from conference to conference, getting impartation from impartation, prayer from prayer, prophecy from prophecy, because we need a consistent new match. Like, I got my little match from that one conference. I went home for a few weeks or a few months, or some of us can sustain that match for a year or so. We go home, we do that little thing for a little while, and then that match is out and we can't get it back. So we go to the next conference and we light the match again, and we go and we carry our little match and we light it, and then it goes out again, and we need to go to get the next one. Now, this is a lot of work. You can do this. I personally don't recommend it. But you can do this. You can get that impartation from revival to conference to conference. You can get those things. But the ones that start coming after are a little bit more sustainable. First of all, there's the actual lighter. The lighter that has fuel in it that can be refilled once off and used for a long, long time. These lighters, these are those when we are starting to serve in a consistent stream. See, when we are submitted under somebody, especially when we're talking an apostle or a pastor, we gain the ability to refill that lighter so we can light the spark ourselves. See, that's maturity. These are growths in maturity. When you're first starting camping, little lighting pack, little lighter, little match set, not a big problem. But when we're growing in our call, we need to be able to refill our lighters so no matter where we are, we can light that fire that God needs us to. We need to be able to start our own fires. We can't keep relying on everybody else to start the fires for us because we're going to be sent out, right? I've got to cook for my own family. I've got to make sure guests coming over to my house are provided for. I can't just keep going over to everybody else's house to get food for my family. I can't just keep waiting for somebody else to come and cook dinner for me. I must do it. I must take responsibility. I must have my own lighter. When you are serving under an apostle or a pastor, this makes this a lot easier because you come every week, you get refilled, you light throughout the week. You can connect with that pastor throughout the week, get the counseling that you need. They can begin reminding you weekly and on a daily basis of where you need to forgive, what sins you need to work through, any additional hindrances that stand in your way. And then the third main way to start a fire, to get that spark going, is what's called flint and steel. This is literally almost looks like a giant metal file and a little stick that you scrape together, and it's made out of a particular metal that sparks and will eventually, if you do it enough, will catch the tinder and then eventually the kindling and will create that fire. Now, this is for those who are much more mature. I would say these are for those who are called to leadership, those who are called to lead others, because you need to know how to start those fires everywhere. You're not always going to have access when you're out on the front lines to a fuel supply. You're going to be sent out into the front lines and you're going to be given the supplies that you need, but eventually that lighter fluid is going to run out and you're going to need to know how to survive out there in the darkness until it's time for you to rotate back home. You're deployed on the front lines. You don't have time to always come back and be like, Please, sir, can I have some more lighter fluid? Please, sir, can you recharge me? No, you need to know how to start it yourself and get recharged yourself. Because when you're in a leadership position, you don't have time to keep stopping to get filled up. You must know how to fill on the go and start that fire on the go and start the fire in others. See the great thing about that flint and steel? You can easily start other people's fires. You come across a newbie survivalist in that forest or in that wilderness, and you see they are not lighting their matches properly. Guess what? You can go, oh, here, let me go. Click, fire started. Boom. Move on with your day. You never run out. You never run out of a spark that you can provide for others as much as you can for yourself. The final thing that you need for a fire, as we wrap up today, and I got 3 questions for a project to help that you guys can begin working on this week to help you with this, is an acceleration, an accelerant. You need a destination, y'all. You can start a fire, but if you don't have a purpose for starting that fire, you're a pyromaniac and you're going to burn somebody and somebody's going to get hurt, most likely yourself. If you're just starting fires for the sake of it, you're going to end up causing damage and hurting yourself and hurting others. Accelerants are maintains or inflames what's already there. And a lot of us, we see this tiny little spark and we're like, yes, there's a spark. Let me throw some lighter fluid on it. Boom. And we're wanting to watch the flame just go from this little tiny little spark to this raging fire. That's what we're wanting. That's what we're looking for. But too much accelerant on that little spark will drown it out. Lighter fluid can only maintain or inflame something that's already there. It cannot start a fire. You can soak all that kindling as much as you want in accelerant. But if that kindling, that spark does not have a place to find a home, to germinate, to marinate, like that seed we were talking about in the beginning, if it doesn't have a place and a home to fully get through its shell, produce its roots, find a home and solidify itself, it will go out. And so you need to be set in position. This is the part where God sends Moses to meet his brother on the way to Egypt. See, God comes, he calls him, he says, hey, my people are crying out, they need all these things, I want you to be their deliverer. He gives them the spark, he gives them the impartation, he says, this is how you're going to produce these miracles and get them to listen to you and, do all this cool and crazy stuff. I'm giving you all of this power. Awesome, now we're excited, we're full of passion, we're ready to go. And then he says, okay, now go to Egypt. And Moses is like, just so you know, I can't really speak. Like, you got me all excited, you got me, I stumble over my words. I got a speech problem. Like, I don't know if I'll be able to. He's like, okay, don't worry. Go on your way. Go meet up with your brother. Go to Egypt. Do this thing. He gives a destination. He gives a purpose. See, those miracles and that spark wasn't given to Moses for no reason. Those miracles were for the purpose of setting God's people free from Egypt. So what do you think would have happened if Moses had tried to stay in Horeb, if he had tried to stay out there in that wilderness, producing and doing all of those miracles? What do you think would have happened? My bit, nothing. Nothing would have happened. Because all of that spark, all of that flame was for a purpose. And so God's going to give you a destination because a flame must be tended to. It must be tended to. It must be protected until it becomes a fire. And once it becomes a fire must be fed. Once we have that fire raging, we must feed the fire. We cannot just say, oh, look at that fire and leave it alone. It will eventually consume all of the wood that you put down and it will burn out or it will look for something else to burn. So we must be deliberate in what we are feeding that fire because if we feed it a log that is not very dry, it'll take longer for that log to catch on fire. We need to feed it logs that have been cured. We need to feed it logs that have been dried correctly. And depending on the kind of wood that you feed that flames, depends on the kind of smell that is going to be infused and flavor that's going to be infused into your food. And I do not want to be eating no food that just tastes like dirt and smoke. I want to taste that woodsy, firewood smoked baby back barbecue, those apple wood chips that give that, ooh, that nice smoked brisket. Now, out here in the United States, we got the South, and all of them barbecue fire pits. Guys, is so good because they've learned the art of smoking that brisket till it falls apart with the touch of a hand. And it tastes incredible because they smoked it with the right materials. And we want to produce the kind of fire that pleases our Heavenly Father. We want to produce the kind of flame that is going to make people hungry and feed them. And so we must feed the flame with the right kinds of wood, with the right kind of material. And that is determined by the destination that we are going in. We need to know where we are going so we know what to feed that fire. If I know that I'm going to be cooking food over that fire, I'm going to be very deliberate about what wood I'm using. If I am not going to be cooking anything over that fire, I'm not going to care what wood gets thrown on there. I just want to stay warm. I want the aesthetic of the fire. So I'm just going to throw whatever wood I want on there. Be deliberate about where you are going. Be deliberate about what you are feeding into your soul, into your spirit, as you walk out towards the destination that God has called you. Because you can't fake fire, y'all. If the source of a fire is weak or artificial, the fire won't last. You can't fake it. You can only grow and maintain the spark that's already shut up in your bones. So here is your project for this week, and then we are going to go into our breakout rooms. So for those of you who are watching online with our live streaming, I do encourage you guys to join us in the breakout rooms so that we can go over these projects together. I can answer any questions that you have and go over. This is Mentorship Meetup Wednesdays. I'm here to answer your questions. I'm here to invest into you and your call. I also would like to, before we go into our conclusion, I want to put this out there for those of you who have been supporting us. Thank you for those who have been supporting our hub, for those of you who have been sponsoring even some tribe members to receive the training that they need here in our tribe. We are very close to finally officially opening up a hub here in San Diego. We had to go back to the drawing board and have a conversation with God. And he told us something. He said, I never called you to start a hub. He said, I called you to start an outpost. It's what we've been trained for. It's what we've been conditioned for. And so we will be launching an outpost here in San Diego. And what that is, it is a facility for you to come to receive hands-on training daily. We're going to incorporate you into our daily lives, from cooking, cleaning, preaching, teaching, ministering, doing deliverance, prayer, all the stuff that Michael and I do on a daily basis. We're going to bring you right into our lives, and we're going to teach you how to do it. We're going to counsel you hands-on, teach you how to counsel others, take you through deliverance, teach you how to do deliverance. We're going to work with you for a limited amount of time. You're going to come stay with us in that facility, and we are going to every day connect and train with you and invest into you for the duration of your stay in that facility before we send you out again. It is a facility for you to come to resupply, refuel, reignite that fire shut up in your bones so that you can then take it back out into the front lines. We're an outpost there on the front lines for those of you who are in full-time ministry. So that is what we are going to be launching here in San Diego. We are very much full of vision and full of fire. We've got our spark, we've got our impartation. Now we're working on the facilities. So if you were blessed by today's message or anything, any of our other services that you've met with us, if you believe in this vision, you want to take advantage of this vision of these facilities, you want to be one of the first there, please do consider becoming a monthly sponsor of our facility, of our hub. We would love to offer these services to you guys. We'd love to provide you with this safe place to just come and invest in your call without distractions, without worrying about if you need to feed the kids or if you need to get to class on time. No, you just come in and 24/7, we're there to invest into you. We've got some giving information in the comment section below, in the chat box below. You can give a once-off donation, or you can go ahead and become a monthly sponsor and continue to sponsor those who need this kind of training but can't yet afford it. We've been sponsoring about, I believe, 2 or 3 people now, free of charge in our tribe because of your donations, because of your sponsorship. So please do consider that as we get ready to jump into our projects. Okay? So we're gonna have our project and then we will go into our breakout room. while you guys go ahead and go and give towards that vision. So, first and foremost, I want you to name your call. What is the task, the job that God has asked you to do? Okay. I want you to look at a recent one because I don't want you to try and be like, oh, my overall call, my overall thing. Look, we've been discussing this so far, but I want to help ignite a flame or a spark today. We're going to build up to our wildfire over the next 3 weeks, okay? So today I want you to look at your spark. I want you to name something God has asked you to do or told you to do recently. Maybe He's told you to, I don't know, maybe He's told you to begin praying for somebody. Maybe He's told you to begin a website. Maybe He told you to begin writing a book. Maybe He told you you need to join Apostle Colette's launch use meeting that's happening tonight with our big brother Michael Feltese. I don't know. What is the instruction God has told you to do? I'm just using that as an example. Okay? I want you to name the recent task call that you received from God. He called you up. He said, this is what's going on. I need you to do this. Okay? Then I want you to get the impartation. Now, the impartation, I want you to have a look at it. Okay? If you're being called to do something that you don't really have the skill set to do, or you're not really sure how to go about it, that's where we go and get our impartation. So, all right, I'm called, God told me I need to start a website. I need to learn how to put together a website, or I need to start a website. Guess what? I don't know how to do that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find somebody who does know how to do that. And I'm going to go get an impartation from them, whether that means having them help me build that website or them teaching me how to build a website. I'm going to go get that impartation of where to start, what to do, whatever the case may be. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. So that's impartation. I want you to look for where do I need to go get this impartation, whether it's from a book, maybe it's from a person, maybe it's from a tutorial, whatever it is. Where do I need to get this impartation from? And then we're going to start the flame. Okay, we are going to take our first step towards doing what God has called us to do. Okay, since this is the theme, starting the website. Okay, I need to start the website. That's what it was. I need to start this website. I need to go. I've spoken to the person. Now what I got to do? Go create a free account, a free trial, somewhere where you can begin putting that website together. Put it down. Get it started. You don't have to be perfect yet. I don't want you guys to try and I need to publish a perfect website. I need to do this, publish a whole book. No. If you're writing, start writing your first chapter. Start writing your introduction. Put together a skeleton. Whatever it is that you need to do. Start it. We need to find the home for that spark. Once we found the home for that spark, we can begin to fan the flame. But I want you to create a home for that spark. So that's where we're going to start today, okay? So, one, what's the call? What's the task that you've been called to do? Where do you need to get your impartation? And where's your first step? What step can we start today to get going? Okay? That's the 3 things that you need to do for this project for today. Next week, we are going to talk about how to harness the power of God's fire. I look forward to connecting with you guys. Thank you for those of you who have decided to partner with us to sponsor us in this vision for starting this outpost here in San Diego. It's the first of many, y'all. We're putting together a blueprint that can be duplicated all over the world. We're going to be training up people to start their own outposts all over the world, all over the United States of America, all over the globe. So this is the first of many. We're going to get it right so that you guys can begin learning how to start your own outposts. We love you guys tons. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. We're going to go now into our breakout rooms. So for those of you on social media who've been watching this live stream, I love you guys so much. And we will see y'all next week. Mwah!